45 The truth will set you free. The once great Prince Eel of the Dark Fight opened a portal into another realm and disappeared soon after I set him free. Satisfied, I leaned against my soulmate, embracing his warmth. He was covered in dry blood, his wounds already healed. The blissful moment was ruined almost immediately. Gabriel stiffened and his grey eyes glazed over, leading me to believe he was being mind-linked. Blade had told me we were being attacked by Delta Moon. The fight wasn't over yet. A few seconds later, he dropped his arm around my waist, spinning me around to face him fully. Momentarily having whiplash, I blinked rapidly and tilted my head to the side. What is it? I forgot to tell you Delta Moon are attacking us. I sent Gomez and Orpheus down to lead our warriors. He informed me, unaware that Blade had already told me. I bit my lip. I know. Blade told me. I ordered him to make sure everyone in the pack house was evacuated. He's currently making sure the safe house is secure. Gabriel's eyes widened, surprised I was already informed. Then, processing what I had told him, they flashed brightly with pride and respect. I knew you'd be a great Luna. You never run away from danger. Normally, I would have smiled and tried to get him to compliment me more, but right now, we had an evil pack to deal with. We should go and help Gomez. I know Morpheus will be fine, but I'm not sure about everyone else, I suggested, worried for the members of the Red Knight pack. Whilst I wasn't well acquainted with all of them, I care for them deeply. They were my responsibility too. As I stepped forwards, prepared to go into battle, I was stopped by a warm hand wrapping around my wrist. Confused, I followed the long and thick arm to the person Gabriel. He appeared torn as if he was thoughts. Concerned, I shuffled closer to him and gently placed my hand on his rough cheek. The sparks that accompanied it were delightful but did nothing to ease my worries. Why aren't you moving? He slid his piercing gaze to me, exhaling onto my face. I don't think you should go. My eyebrows shot up in shock. And then, realizing where he was coming from, because how could I have not seen it instantly, I opened my mouth ready to defend my ground. However, Gabriel managed to slide in before I could. Hear me out. Liberty, I nearly lost you to that monster. You look dead. Gone. I can't live with that again. This was quite possibly the worst time to be having this conversation. For once, Gabriel was putting himself first and I wanted to bash him in the head for choosing the worst time. He needed me, but by putting me into the battle, his thoughts would be on me. One of us would have to make a sacrifice. And as much as I respected my mate, I had a duty to this pack. Gabriel, no. Liberty, I think you should go and find Blade. Protect the safe house. He interrupted me again, his voice demanding and sure. I snorted. He knew me well enough to know I'd never do that. I was going to be right by his side. Had my close encounter with death really affected him this much? He seemed so different. You have the worst fucking timing. Gabriel, I pointed out, almost laughing crazily. And I guess that's another thing I love about you. His swirling grey orb snapped to mine, holding me captive, all of his features enlarged, portraying his shock. This wouldn't be the first time I wished I could read his mind, but boy did I really wish I could hear what he was thinking right now. He seemed completely lost for words. He didn't expect me to declare my love for him. Then again, I didn't expect him to order me to run and hide from our enemy. We were both surprising each other. Did you just say yes? I cut him off. Now, knowing that I love you, will you start walking towards the fight? Every second we stand here having an intimate moment, another pack member falls. Gabriel swallows audibly and leans down to smash his lips onto mine. My mind floods with feelings of desire and want to shake them off as I do to him. He stumbles back but smiles, dazed. Let's go. Did Eel bash him on the head hard or something? No, not now, Liberty. We have a pack to save. With that clear as day thought circling in my head, I dashed through the forest beside my mate. The both of us standing united against an evil force. Shouts are the first thing I hear. Then the scent of blood floated up my nose, causing me to scrunch my nose up in disgust. Finally, we ran into the field where there were hundreds of wolves fighting each other off. I saw dozens of bodies lying flat on the ground, dead. My heart panged for them, for they lost their lives too soon. Gabriel faltered. I knew this would be taking a heavy toll on him too. Every pack member was close to him. Losing them was like losing a part of his soul. We didn't have much time to take in the scene before us. A feral wolf came charging at us, intent on killing us. Gabriel managed to knock himself out of his thoughts and quickly shifted into his large wolf. It occurred to me that I had never seen him in wolf form before. For a brief moment, I marveled at how stunning his wolf was. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Strong and commanding, he was everything an alpha had to be. Gabriel tackled the ground, snarling loudly. A few wolves popped their heads up at the sound of their alpha and howled. Their alpha had joined the fight. Now they had more motivation to win this. Leading my mate with the wolf, I ran over to Morpheus, who was using his ability to manipulate air. Any wolf that charged at him received a rush of wind, making them go flying backward. He glanced at me, his eyes shining with relief. He thought I was a goner too. Liberty. He called my name, his tone projecting his mind. I knew what he was saying to me immediately. Where do you need me? Darting my eyes around the expansive field. There's the alpha I can't get to. There is a block of wolves who are defending him. I can't leave this front line, he told me, zapping another wolf away. I scanned the area, stopping when my eyes landed on 7 wolves guarding something. Or should I say someone? The alpha. I'll get some wolves together. Leave the alpha to me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Embracing my lunar status. It wouldn't work on my brother since he was a king, but he respected me and trusted me with my decisions. He nodded his head, giving his full attention to the herd of wolves, barreling towards us. I bolted over to where the alpha was, only stopping to ask Red, Night Wolves, for assistance. They didn't even falter, trusting me and wanting to help me. I managed to gather 6 wolves. It was not nearly enough, but I had to put my faith in them and hope they wouldn't let me down. The wolf in the middle of the block, Kate, noticed us and growled, alerting his packmates. They all leaned forwards, preparing for an attack. My wolf snarled and leapt into the air, aiming for them, whilst they distracted the warriors. I focused on the alpha. He was taller than the other warriors. Hell, I was fairly certain he was taller than Gabriel. I didn't know much about this alpha. I didn't even know what his name was. I didn't care though. He was a threat to my pack safety, so he had to be eliminated. His beady red eyes slid to me and glowed with hatred. As he stared into the depths of my eyes, it felt as if he could see my soul. I shivered at the thought, shaking off my feelings. I plastered a neutral expression onto my face and summoned my powers. Once again, I produced vines from the forest, intent on getting them to twist around the alpha's body. However, unlike my intentions with Aziel, my plan was to kill this alpha. Just as the vines were going to wrap around his wolf body, he managed to dodge them with skill and ease. I had never seen anyone do that before. Then, he connected eyes with me, letting me stare into his cold and unforgiving eyes before hurtling into the woods. I had no choice but to follow him. It took me longer, and since I didn't have super senses, I couldn't scent him out. I had to hope he ventured along the path. I followed him until we reached an ancient stone table. Knitting my eyebrows together, I examined the area, searching for the alpha. The sound of a stick snapping to my left caught my immediate attention. Whipping my head in that direction, I saw a tall and burly man saunter towards the table, his eyes trained on me. This was the alpha, but in human form. He was handsome, but not in a conventional way. His eyes were a dark color and his features were sharp. Too sharp. If I brushed my finger on his jaw, it would probably cut. His eyes were full of hatred. You must be the alpha of Delta, Moon. crossing my arms over my chest. I forgot I was still wearing my dress from last night. It's not the most appropriate outfit to be fighting in. A grin spread onto his lips. It pissed me off that he appeared calm and collected. It was like he had forgotten there was a war going on between our packs. I flickered my eyes up to his eyes and felt suspicious when I saw the glint of amusement in his eyes. "And your Princess Liberty," he responded, equally confident. I figured the Alpha knew my name because of Azil. They had been working together after all. Rolling my shoulders forwards, I straightened my posture, conveying my confidence. "Your accomplice won't be helping you anymore," I informed him, slyly smiling discreetly. "He has been disposed of." To my annoyance and horror, he wasn't taken aback. Am I supposed to be angry? Cocking an eyebrow, posing, I took in his form and the way he stood so casually, not at all fazed. It was like he wanted this to happen. That made my stomach churn. "You're working it out, aren't you?" Coldly, "You did me a favor, Liberty." Stepping back cautiously, there was something awfully wrong with this. Suddenly, I wished I hadn't chased after him like some hero. "You wanted Azil gone." My voice going quiet, but not dead, he pointed out, sticking a finger up. "Originally, I planned to use him for this, but now that he's gone, I'll have to use you instead." What was he talking about? Why did he need me? You see, I needed his help to get onto Red Knight's back, and since he was driven mad with the need to carry out revenge, I thought I'd help him out. He explained, nonchalantly. "All I had to do was help him poison you. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Just threaten Carrie's sister and it'll be done. I just have to attack Red Knight when they were at their weakest, when you were unconscious." Who was this man? He had planned this out very well. Too well. With the pack distracted, I could lead Azil to this stone table. The only table to be created by the Fae. It was a pain working out how to get to your territory and use it, but that was another thing Azil helped me with. Attacking Red Knight. Perfect. He tapped his fingers on the magical table lightly. It was beautifully crafted, with intricate designs around the edges. This man had mentioned the Fae had created it. He didn't specify which Fae. Everything was going according to plan. But what I failed to consider was Azil losing. Spitting it out as if it was the most detestable word in existence. "Thankfully you survived and fallen me. I thought you would have learned more from the Werewolf book. You have read it, right?" Carrie said you had. The Werewolf book. Was he referring to the one about the origin of wolves? "I can see the wheels turning in your brain. You're supposed to be smart." "Liberty," he taunted, mocking me, clenching my jaw. I recalled the book I had spent many hours poring over. I then remembered Declan's story and what had entailed. "Who are you?" I questioned, lifting my head up. Our eyes met, his full of cynical humor whilst mine full of desperation. "Did I not tell you my name?" he said purposefully for dramatics. "My name is Alpha Z Agan, 46 in Alpha's power. The man who betrayed the original king and queen of wolves, who stabbed them in the back. The wolf who kidnapped my people and tried to their essence so that he could become immortal. The man who should be dead." I stumbled backward, reeling. How was this possible? How was he alive? Standing before me with a cocky grin on his face. How had I not picked up on the clues he had said throughout our conversation? "So you have read the book," he commented with wicked glee. "That makes it more fun then. You'll know exactly what's going to happen." I hardened my stare, glaring at him with hatred. He had tried to kill my people, to take our powers. "How are you alive?" "Sir Egan." Distracting him. Perhaps I could delay him until reinforcements come. "Assuming they come, of course." He cocked his head to the side, his eyes twinkling with intelligence. He knew what I was doing, but he went along with it, confident we wouldn't be disturbed. "Well, as you know, I tried to conduct the spell hundreds of years ago. Yet, here I am, looking 25, without any wrinkles, taking pleasure in telling this story. It took a while for me to recover from what your grandfather did, but I eventually managed to find a lineage of witches who were willing to create an dark potion to keep me alive. My eyebrows furrowed together. Then why do you want to use me? You've succeeded. He narrowed his eyes at me, annoyed I had asked a stupid question. Because the potion uses dark magic, it has more cons than pros. For instance, grabbing onto his blue t-shirt, tugging the top of it down, he exposed his tan skin and the burnt marks that seemed to infect his body. My nose crinkled in disgust. I had never seen anything as revolting as that before. The potion is slowly killing my body. I have to take several other remedies to slow the process down even more. He told me, "Timo agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That's why I need you. Liberty. I need your essence, your powers. With them, I won't have to rely on those useless witches. I can finally enjoy immortality over my dead body." A bubble of sadistic laughter escaped his pink lips. That can be arranged. I had really walked into a mess. I had no plan. I was all alone, shaking my head at those depressing and alarming thoughts. I straightened my posture, matching his look evenly. He might be older than me, and he might be intent on sacrificing me so he could be immortal. But I was a light fire. I had powers. So how would you like to do this? Princess, Liberty, are you willingly going to walk to your death, or must I force you? Arching a thick eyebrow, stepping closer, I plastered a poker face on myself, refusing to be seen as weak. Surprise flitted across his handsome face. Shocked I was walking over to him. Foolishly, he believed I had given up. Or maybe he sensed I was plotting something and wanted to seem caught off guard. My heart was racing in my chest, and I knew he could detect it. He knew I was nervous and was reveling in it. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Stopping a few inches from him, I focused my magic on him, forcing him to go flying into a nearby tree. Instead of letting him drop to the ground, I held him against it. Above ground, he gasped for air and struggled, believing he could get out of my magical spell. I inched closer, directing my power to my stretched out hand. "I don't want to kill you, Sir Egan. I don't believe in murder." I spoke in a calm voice, never losing my composure. Confidence seemed to pour out of me now that I knew he was stuck to the tree, unable to harm me. I was so wrapped up in my success that I failed to account for other beings coming toward me. Distantly, I heard a voice chanting quietly, the croak-wive voice casting a familiar spell. My body went skyrocketing a few meters away, landing with a thud. I let go of my mental hold on the Aegon as I groaned. The muscles in my back pangay in pain, and it took me a moment to regain my strength. When I clambered to my feet, I spotted a raven-haired woman with sharp, cool features. Instantly, I knew she was a witch, possibly from the clan that was helping the Egan. She must be here to complete the sacrifice. I should have realized he'd have a magical being with him. Coughing, I glared at the woman who was still muttering a foreign language. I believed it was German. Peculiar, choosing the hard way. The Egan stated, seeming pleased I had chosen that route. He liked causing pain. I glowered at him as well, calling my magic again. This time, the woman sensed what I was doing and started casting a dark spell. A spell that chilled my very soul. Just as I was about to silence her with my vines, my body became immobile. Startled, I realized she froze my body. I had no control. She had managed to stop my body from fighting, and it terrified me. Never had I been put in a position like this before. I didn't like it at all. As I tried to conjure my magic, nothing happened. Panic flooded into my system, making me dart my eyes to the witch. The only way I could communicate was through my eyes. She smirked at me. Pleased, she beat me. All I could feel was confusion. How could she stop my magic? "Do you know what spell Irene used?" Sir Egan queried, dusting the dirt off his clothes. Cocky look had returned. I couldn't speak. or even shake my head. All control was gone. Irene is from the coven of witches who have been helping me stay alive. She's the only person who agreed to this. Standing beside her, almost affectionately, he dragged a finger down her cheek. She likes a challenge and you seem to fit the bill perfectly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I honestly expected you to last longer. Perhaps you're not as powerful as you claim. Clueless. All I could do was listen to him talk insufferably. He reminded me of Aziel. He loved to talk and boast about his intelligence. It's an old spell. A spell created by the Grand Witch herself, Claudia. She forbid anyone from using it due to its horrible nature. She spoke up, her voice layered with a German accent. She named the spell herself Nichtmehr. It means no more. My heart was galloping in my chest now. I knew her next words were going to puncture a hole in my body. She was having a ball talking about this, her mind just as twisted as the Aegon's. Irene glided closer to me, her movements too agile and too precise. She examined me from head to toe and scrunched her big nose. Leaning to my ear, she huskily whispered, "No more magic. No more magic." She took my magic away. The thing that had been gifted to me by my ancestors. The element that made me who I was. She ripped it out of me, out of my soul. A lone tear shed from my eye and trailed down my cold cheek. Maneuvering herself back, she stared at my face. More specifically, my cheek, and grinned. Aegon then appeared beside her, his dark eyes regarding me with amusement. He slipped past her and wrapped his arms around my shoulders and behind my knees. In one fluid motion, he lifted my limp body from the ground, carrying my bridal style to the grey table. My only hope was that my mate would show up with my brother and stop him. What would my family think knowing their daughter had lost her magic? Fluttering, my eyes closed in defeat. I prayed Gabriel was okay. I prayed the pack defeated the Aegons with minimal lives lost. I wished Gabriel would move on if I died. Escaping death once was lucky. Twice. Well, that was like dancing with the devil. If I was to die, I hoped Gabriel would avenge me by capturing the Aegon and punishing him for his crimes. Gently, he placed me on the ice-cold table and stepped back, allowing Irene to come into my view instead. Hovering over my upper body, she harshly wiped away the lingering tear. "Some powerful princess you are, Liberty," she mused, cackling wickedly. "Are you ready? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Aegon asked, interrupting her moment. Rigidly straightening her posture, she flashed him a flirtatious smile and composed herself. Did they have some sort of relationship? That didn't even matter anymore. I'd be dead in a few minutes. Where had my will to live gone? Irene began whispering in a ghostly voice an unfamiliar spell, her words striking fear into my heart. The atmosphere around her stilled and then picked up, circling us crazily. Losing the will to watch anymore, I made my last wish. I wished Gabriel would be happy. Suddenly, the wind came to a halt. A cry of agony erupted through the air, followed by a vicious and protective snarl, tuning my ears to the area. I listened to what was happening since I couldn't tilt my head to the side and see. A new person came into my view, blurry at first. As my vision started to clear, I took in their light blonde hair and sparkly jade eyes. Jacob. Liberty. Thank God. Que my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Relieved to see me alive, he evaluated my state, his lips pressing together firmly. "What did they do to you?" I tried so hard to open my mouth, but no words came out. He realized I had been paralyzed and clenched his jaw tightly. "Those bastards. We'll make them pay for what they did." My brother helped me sit up, using his arm to support my body. I could see the scene. Declan and Gomez were here. Gabriel was nowhere in sight. Was he still fighting with the rest of his pack? Was he hurt? Sensing my rising anxiety, Jacob soothingly rubbed my shoulder. "Gabriel's alive. He's taking care of the last few wolves. We won. Liberty. We won. Those were the words I was so desperate to hear. My brothers were busy with the witch who took so much from me, easily winning. Gomez was dealing with Egan. I was watching my brothers, taking satisfaction from Irene's defeat, when I heard a pained whine, snapping my gaze back to the wolves. I saw that Egan was pinning Gomez to the ground. Blood was smeared over Egan's mouth and a chunk of flesh was sitting in between his razor-sharp teeth. I gasped in horror. My eyes whipped to Gomez, and where blood was pouring out of his neck, Jacob let go of me, causing me to fall back onto the table. No doubt he was racing over to Gomez. Annoyingly, all I could do was lie on the table and stare at the sky, hoping Gomez was okay. Sabrina wouldn't be okay if he wasn't. She crumbled. Another pair of arms lifted me up, this time carrying me. I saw it was Declan, who had a grim expression on his face. His kind orbs were layered with unshed tears and he said the words that would change many people's lives quietly. He's dead. 47 Aftermath. The funeral was on a sunny day. Hundreds of pack members, some still injured, crowded around the casket and watched it be lowered to the floor. Muffled cries echoed throughout the packed graveyard. I scanned the area, making eye contact with a few familiar pack members opposite me. They all had looks of grief plastered on their faces. Today was a tough day for everyone, especially Sabrina. She stood to my left, clutching her brother's body, sobbing her heart out. Her skin was extremely pale, her hair disheveled. Blade was soothingly whispering words into her ears. Worried for his sister. My heart shattered at the sight of her. She didn't deserve this. Gabriel tightened his hold on me and pecked the top of my hair affectionately. He had acquired minor injuries during the fight. All of the gashes had healed quickly, but as for the broken arm, it was taking its sweet time. It had been stressful the past few days. With the death of Gabriel's gamma and with rebuilding the pack, I was trying to help him whilst battling my negative thoughts. Ever since I lose my powers, I felt empty. There was a hole in my soul that I couldn't fill with anything. When I told Gabriel, he hugged me and tried to reassure me that my powers didn't make me who I was. His words helped, but he would never truly understand what it felt like to have powers one day and then not have any. Knowing I had lost them broke my heart. My brothers shed a tear when they found out. Jacob declared he would try and find a way to get them back, believing there must be some spark left. Unbeknownst to him, I didn't feel a single trace of magic inside of me. It was all gone. Yesterday, my parents visited. My father faced me with watery eyes and embraced me. I relished in his warm arms, feeling safe. He pulled away, letting my mother have her turn. Her resolve momentarily softened. It was only when I pulled away from her that she scolded me for recklessly leaving and for not giving her some sort of warning. Gabriel watched our interactions with keen eyes. After she finished, I introduced him to them. They already knew about him but had yet to meet him. I was worried my father might interrogate him, but he did none of that, thankfully. I'm Alpha Gabriel. It's a pleasure to meet you. He introduced himself with an air of confidence that my father respected. Approval shone in his eyes the more they spoke. My mother stared him up and down. We've been hearing some things about your relationship. My mother interrupted them. Gabriel darted his eyes from my father to me, and then my mother. She could appear intimidating when she wanted to be. Gabriel straightened his posture, refusing to back down. I smiled with pride. You were showing that my mother didn't scare him. Liberty. She swiveled to me, silently asking if I wanted this. I love him, mother. I told her, sincerely. She blanched, clearly not expecting my declaration. It made me wonder what my siblings reported to her. Did Morpheus depict our relationship in a negative way? My mother flickered her jade orbs between us and eventually managed to smile. Albeit awkwardly, she approved. It was strange to see her so protective. I would have thought my dad would be protective if anyone was. My parents stayed for dinner, wanting to get to know my mate more. It was difficult, though we were preparing for Gomez's funeral. The pack was still mourning. We were still mourning. After they left, with promises to visit again soon, we made the final adjustments to the funeral. I tried to approach Sabrina, but she had locked herself in her room, refusing to come out. She only let her brother in, and whenever he left, he'd have a distraught expression on his face. It hurt the whole pack. Gomez's death hit everyone. After the ceremony, we shifted back into the pack house for food. I spoke to many pack members who tried to sound positive. I wished I had spent more time with Gomez. It occurred to me I never really got to know him. This sad thought made me promise to get to know the pack more. My eyes met Gabriel's from across the room, silently conveying all of my emotions. I knew he could decipher every single thing I felt. As we ate, I tried to speak to Sabrina, but she turned me down. By the end of the day, I was glad to go back to my room. Well, Gabriel's room. I hadn't officially moved in yet. He returned to the room an hour later, exhaustion evident in his face. He had even more on his plate now. After the fight, he had to sort out what to do with Z Egan and the members of Delta, Moon. And then there was the question of who would take over Gomez's position. I had just walked out of the bathroom, my hair tied in the towel. "Hey," I greeted quietly, attempting to smile. "Hey," he replied, eyeing me up and down. The bathrobe I was wearing was large and fluffy. Today was hard. Grimacing as I recalled Sabrina's face of agony, Blade had to hold her up during the ceremony as she was too weak to do so herself. Gabriel nodded his head. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I sauntered over to him, my facial features softening. "Why don't you have a shower? Let yourself relax." His alluring grey orbs drifted to the end, sweet behind me, the idea warming his eyes. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." He walked past me, intentionally brushing against my shoulders, allowing the sparks to ignite my body. When he closed the door, I sighed and crawled into bed. Remembering I was still wearing the towel on my head, I took it off. My fingers combed through my knotty wet hair as I hummed an ode to my mother used to sing to me. The time passed quickly. I only realized this when Gabriel's velvety voice startled me. "Would you like me to brush your hair?" Jumping in my seat, I blushed at my fear. Embarrassed, I saw his lips twitch, finding it amusing. "Sure." He glided over to the dressing table where my headrush lay and then climbed into bed. His dark hair was wet, but he seemed fresh. The light in his eyes seemed to have a spark. Gabriel sat behind me and started running the brush through my hair in a soft and slow manner. I closed my eyes, relishing the feeling. Tranquility washed over me, and unconsciously, I started humming the song again. Sabrina looked rough, he commented, worryingly. I stopped singing and swallowed. I tried talking to her, but she refused to acknowledge me. "Do you think she's mad at me?" Gabriel paused, his fingers lingering in my hair. "I think our emotions are all over the place. Grief is a terrible thing. It can't twist your thoughts and make you want to blame the whole world. She's not thinking clearly right now, and she's going to need time to find a way to cope." His words came from a place of understanding. He'd had experienced a great loss, and so he could see what I couldn't. "Do you think I should keep trying, or should I give her some time?" Unsure of how to proceed. Sabrina was one of my closest friends, and I valued our friendship. I didn't want to lose it. He continued brushing, more certain of his words. It must have been difficult for him to speak about this. "I think you should keep trying. You're one of her closest friends. She looks up to you," he advised. Wisely, I accepted his advice gratefully. Gabriel had finished brushing my hair and was placing the brush on the bedside table. I shrugged the cozy dressing gown off and chucked it on the small chair to my left. The lights turned off and silence ensued. Gabriel's arms encircled my body, cocooned me. My body relaxed in his arms, my mind settling. "I love you," he murmured against my bare skin, inhaling my scent. "I love you too," I replied, smiling happily. The next morning, I followed Gabriel to his office. Instead of loitering around and feeling sorry for myself about my lack of powers, I decided to put my skills to work. Gabriel was surprised to see me. His grey orbs flickered up to me with confusion, those beautiful eyes swirling with warmth. A few months ago, if someone had told me I'd find Maya and be happy, I would have thought otherwise. Especially after I met Gabriel and realized he didn't want me. Are you okay? Shutting the big book, I darted my eyes around the room, recalling every instance I was in here. There was always some drama happening. Yes, I've come to help you. Eager to help him and relieve some of his stress, he tilted his head to the side, causing strands of his dark hair to sweep over his forehead. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He conceded, the corners of his lips quirking upwards. We have to sort out what we're going to do with Carrie. She is currently locked in her room with the guard stationed outside of her door. I'm aware of what happened, but she still must face some sort of punishment. I had barely thought about Carrie. She had been the one that nearly killed me, but it was because she was being blackmailed. What about her sister? He pinched his lips together, sighing. Well, she must have been released after Z. Egan's death. I'm sure she's in Delta, Moonpack. Is there a chance I can bring her here? My words startled him. He peered back up at me with furrowed eyebrows. You want to bring her sister here? I nodded my head. Yes, Delta. Moon imprisoned her. And maybe even tortured her. She won't want to live there. We should bring her here. His face softened. I could tell he was impressed by my compassion. And what do you want to do about Carrie? Pondering over the options, I didn't want any harm to come to her, but Gabriel had to punish her in some way. He had to establish authority. Lowering my body into the chair opposite him, I sat upright and loosened a breath. Carrie, her name slipped out of my lips with sadness. She doesn't deserve imprisonment. She was just as much of a victim as me. I sunk into the chair, gathering my next words. I think she should be made to work here, but under lockdown for a year. That sounds fair. He agreed, smiling. Would you like the arrangements for her sister? Or shall I? I perked up. In comfortable silence, we both worked, finding a smooth rhythm. As I glanced up at my mate, I felt content. We had worked hard to get here. 48 friends. A week after the incident, I finally mustered the courage to approach Sabrina. The walk towards her house was full of anticipation and nervousness. My heart was beating erratically in my chest, threatening to burst out at any moment. Her small and quaint house came into view. It had lost its original charm, now becoming a dreary and solemn place. The loss of Gomez's presence was evident here. As I stepped up to the door, I knew Sabrina was in her house. She hadn't left it since the funeral. She had people who came to visit and tried to coax her out of her house. It never worked. She refused to leave her sanctuary. The real world was too difficult for her right now. Taking in a deep breath, I raised my amut and knocked on her door sharply. Footsteps on the other end of the door sounded, her feet stomping over to me. When she swung the door open, I softened my gaze. Hey, I greeted, trying not to seem unsure or anxious. Her hazel eyes examined me from head to toe whilst her upper lip curled upwards. What are you doing here? Nibbity. Her voice cold and detached. I winced. She sounded nothing like the happy and bubbly Sabrina who befriended me immediately. A pang of sadness shot through my heart, knowing there was nothing I could really do to help her. I'm here to see you, of course. Can I come in? My voice wavered at her hard stare, my throat becoming dry. Sabrina didn't say anything. She shuffled to the side, allowing me to enter her home. It was just as I remembered it, but without warmth. We walked into the lounge where piles of items were thrown everywhere. It looked as if someone had tried to rob the place. Keeping my face neutral, I sat down on the couch whilst she uncomfortably sat at the edge of her chair. Now inside, I had the time to look at her properly. Violet bags were prominent under her eyes. Her usual tan complexion was gone. Her shiny hair had lost its healthiness and was tied in a messy and unruly bun on the top of her head. My heart broke for her. She was not dealing with this well at all. Not that it would be reasonable for her to deal with it in a calm manner. She had lost the love of her life. Her man, Why are you here? Liberty. She repeated her question, apathetically. Swallowing. I forced a friendly smile on my face. I wanted to talk to you and tell you I'm here for you. You're not alone. It was as if my words had snapped a chord in her. Her blazing eyes darted to me and her jaw clenched. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, she let out a cold and chilling laugh, throwing her head back. I was momentarily stunned by it, not used to seeing her so dark. Silently, I wept for her and her suffering. She didn't deserve to feel like this. Sabrina was a good person with a heart of gold. Losing her mate would change her, and not in a good way. Don't look at me like that. She spat, her glowing eyes flashing murderously. It's your fault I'm in this predicament. I stilled at her words, my stomach churning, at my loss for words. She wickedly grinned, a maniacal glint present in her eyes. I blame you for what happened. You were the one who foolishly went after Egan. You put yourself in that position, knowing you would need rescuing. My loyal mate went after you because it was his duty and that got him killed. Her vicious words aimed to hurt me, and they did. She didn't care about anybody else's pain. Her pain was more painful than anyone else's, and I resonated with that. I couldn't be angry with her even if I wanted to be. She was spiraling and needed help. There was an element of truth to her words. I had got a loan that I never intended for anyone to follow me. I wanted to deal with Egan by myself. In the end, I should have realized that the pack would follow me. I was their Lulu and they wanted to protect me. I was going to be the person that helped her. I was going to stick by her no matter what. She could push me away at every turn, but it still wouldn't stop me from helping her. You're being cruel because you're in pain. This isn't who you are. My voice laced with compassion. She smeared at me, her hazel eyes watery. I have the right to act however I want to. I'm in pain. I lost my mate, my world. You have no right to talk to me. It's all your fault. But this isn't who you are. I countered, emphasizing every word. I wanted her to see that this person wasn't like this, that she didn't blame her friends. You're right, it's not who I am. It's not who I was. This is me now, though. This is what happens when you lose the love of your life. What's the point of trying to move on? To be better? What is my life going to lead to now? She cried, fisting a handful of her hair. He's gone and now I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. I wanted to hug her so badly, to make her feel like she wasn't alone. But I knew my presence wasn't comforting to her at the moment. I was simply somebody she could let her frustrations on. And I didn't care how toxic or bad that was. I'd let her. I'd take every bad word and every insult if it made her feel pleasant for 1 second. No matter what I say, you'll refute it. But I want you to know that I'm not going to run away. You're one of my closest friends, one of my confidants, and that means a lot. I'm going to try and help you no matter what. I told her, even though I knew she didn't want to hear my words. At least she knew the truth. It should have been you that died. You escaped death once, it shouldn't have happened twice. That's why death took Gomez, my kind and good bidmate, because it wanted payback. She claimed, sniffling. Her cheeks were bright red, flamed from the hysterics. It needed a soul, and since it couldn't claim yours, it took his. Speechless, I stared at her with sadness. Blame me then, I blurted out, steadily staring at her. She blinked, shock written all over her face. What? I said, blame me. Slowly. I'm the one at fault, so take it out on me. I deserve it. She tilted her head to the side, emotionally retreating backward. Is this some sort of reverse psychology? What are you doing? She eventually asked. She gazed up and down my form, unsure of where I was going. I shook my head. No, this is me wanting to help you. I hate seeing you like this. You don't deserve to suffer. I know I don't, but you do. She retorted, but then paused. Her eyes glistened as she thought over my words. Her eyes hardened. You're doing this because you know me, lashing out that you won't be the same. She stated, "J'aimerais extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I'm not going to get the same satisfaction. Pursing my lips, I exhaled. If that's what you want to believe, then okay. Abruptly, Sabrina jumped to her feet, the atmosphere switching to annoyance. I casually rose to my feet, keeping an eye on her. Without my magic, I wouldn't be able to restrain her if she attacked me. Then again, I didn't want to do that. I also knew in my heart that she wouldn't hurt me. Not really. She still cared about me, she was just hurting. Stop doing this, she screamed, flapping her arms around haphazardly. I remained silent. To her aggravation, you should fucking leave. I don't want to see you anymore. I never want to see you again, she shrieked, her voice cracking. Pain was evident in her voice and eyes. I will leave, but I'm not going to give up on you, I announced, firmly. She turned her back to me, refusing to let me look at her anymore. Sighing, I walked over to her door, my thoughts clashing. A part of me desperately wanted to stay, but I wanted to respect her wish. Maybe she needed a bit more time. I'd keep my promise though. I wouldn't stop fighting for her. As my fingers brushed the door handle, I heard her rush to the corridor. I was spun around to face her and my body was forced into hers. She buried her face in my neck, a few tears escaping her eyes and wetting my skin. My arms hesitantly wrapped around her trembling body and I whispered soothing words into her ear. We stood in each other's arms for a few minutes, until she cooled down. When we pulled away, her face was blotsky and tear stains had marked her pale skin. Do you want to come and stay in the pack house for a while? I suggested, concerned for her. The idea of her staying in this house alone didn't sit well with me. Thankfully, she nodded her head. I think that would be a good idea. It didn't take Sabrina long to pack a small suitcase. I watched her silently as she stared at a picture of her and Gomez on their bedside table. A look of longing flickered over her distraught face. My heart lurched at the sight and I slowly approached her, my arms wrapping around her frail and shaking shoulders. When we returned to the pack house, I was met by Blade, who embraced his sister in a bone-crushing hug. Come on, let's find you a room, Blade murmured, guiding her up the stairs. I left them to it, knowing Blade would assist her in any way he could. I strolled into the kitchen where Nellie was baking a cake, her hair a rumpled mess. At the sound of my arrival, her brown orbs wide and a smile spread across her innocent face. Luna, it's good to see you, she exclaimed, causing the other cooks to notice me. They all bowed their heads in respect. What can we help you with? I smiled at her friendliness and stepped to the counter. I came to help. I haven't seen any of you in a while. Nellie's eyes brightened. Oh, are you sure? We don't want to keep you from your Luna duties. I waved my hand. The Alpha is currently busy with another Alpha. He won't need me for a while. Skeptical but happy I was here. She told me what they needed help with and I got straight to it. We chatted for a while, swapping stories about our cooking experiences. It felt nice to bond with them. They were one of the first people I spoke to when I arrived here. Although they were hesitant to trust me, they opened up to me and allowed me into their space. Gabriel came rolling into the kitchen an hour later, looking stressed but thrilled to see me. I excused myself, promising to be back later this week, and grabbed onto his hand. Magical tingles erupted on my skin, traveling up my arm. I could never get enough of this. Peering up at my handsome mate, I saw his reaction too. He was feeling them just as intensely as I. The bond was thriving now. We had many close calls where we believed we'd lose the other, but now we were here, safe and alive. Did you get everything sorted? I asked him, softly. He nodded his head, his posture relaxing. Yes, actually. Alpha Imogen was all for taking in a few members of Delta, Moon. She was surprised at what I told her about Z.A. Egan and was apologetic that she didn't help us earlier. It sounds like we have a good ally. I mused. The corners of his lips quirked upwards. Yeah, I think we do. Walking closer to him, I felt my heart click into place. Losing my magic didn't feel as bad now because I knew I had Gabriel. I'd rather lose my magic than him. It wasn't the end of the world. It was the start of a new one. 丨Carrie embraced her sister with tears rolling down her flushed cheeks. They were both shaking vigorously. I watched the exchange with soft eyes. Happy for them. Carrie might have done some horrible stuff that would take a while to get over, but she loved her sister dearly. She did it to keep her alive. I would have done the same if Gabriel or my family were in danger. Gabriel stood beside me, his arms slung around my waist. It had taken longer than expected to get Annika here. Carrie was beginning to wonder if we were lying to her. Now that she was here, I felt like I had made the right decision. Gabriel didn't judge me, nor did he think I was doing the wrong thing. Carrie guided her sister to her room where they will both be staying. Surprisingly, Carrie took her punishment well. She was relieved we weren't to banish or kill her, and she gasped when we informed her we were bringing Annika to her. She will be working as a housemaid for some time. Privately, she told me she didn't mind. When I first saw her alone, she pulled me aside and apologized profusely. Tears sprung in the corners of her eyes, and the remaining remnants of anger I held towards her vanished. She was a victim just like me and didn't deserve to be shamed or labeled an outcast. We were never going to be friends. I realized that now. But she didn't need a friend anymore. She had her sister back. The one person she really needed. I snuggled into my mate's neck, basking in his delicious scent. He tightened his hold on my shoulders, squeezing onto me for dear life. The bond had been pushing us together, wanting us to mark each other. Werewolves physically marked their mates on the neck by biting them. I didn't do that. We used our magic to create a mark on the soul of the other. Since I no longer had my magic, I couldn't deal could mark me. I didn't need the mark to know we belonged to each other. We had each other, and that was enough. Your scent is driving me wild, he murmured into my hair huskily. I shivered at his deep, baritone voice. I want to mark you. We hadn't talked about him marking me. I wanted him to. I wanted to let him mark me and then have a passionate night where we got to taste each other's bodies. I wanted him to mark me soon, and I think he knew that. I want that too, I whispered, my voice laced with desire. His body jerked back, his grey eyes darkening at the prospect. Are you sure? It's not been that long since. Unable to finish his sentence, he struggled to deal with Gomez's death. It had been 3 months since it happened, but the pack was still shaken. Sabrina was doing better. She had bad, dark days, but she also had brighter days. Instead of blaming me, she turned to me for help. I'm sure, I declared, my voice portraying my certainty. I wanted him and he wanted me. There was nothing else that needed to be said. His eyes brightened, appearing like the stars. I mentally framed this image, wanting to remember him like this for eternity. Now that I had lost my magic, I would continue aging. One fear I had that I discussed with Gabriel earlier was about my immortality. I stopped aging after 21. Werewolves aside from royalty aged like humans. He'd die eventually whilst I kept living. The heartache would be so terrible that I'd die along with him. However, since I no longer had powerful magic rushing through my veins, my cells would start aging again. It would have worked out perfectly. Abruptly, Gabriel picked me up and whisked me away to his room, dropping me on the bed. I let out an excited gasp, my body tingling in delight. He hovered over me, careful not to crush me. An animalistic look flashed in his eyes, and I was so excited to embrace his dark side. The bite is going to hurt a bit, he warned me. Bravely, I tilted my head up so that we were eye level. I'm not scared. His lips twitched. You never are, that's why I love you. By now, my heart was pounding in my chest. We hadn't exchanged that word until now. Now that he had said the word, I could feel my world spinning. This wasn't the first time someone declared their love for me. I had been around for a long time and had many relationships, but this was the most significant. I love you too. That was when he sunk his fangs into my delicate and pulsing skin. A short shriek passed through my lips, followed by a moan of pleasure. Bursts of colors flooded my vision. I was transported to a whole new world, an extraordinary place. My body floated out of space and time. When he retracted his fangs, his lips slid to my pursed lips, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I begged, and with my crazy passion, I flipped us, my body on top of his. He was momentarily stunned, but I didn't give him any time to interpret what happened. My top was ripped, exposing my nude bra. My pale skin glittered under the bright yellow light, and I arched my back in pleasure. Gabriel trailed kisses down my body, his lips finding every mold imperfection. I squeezed his shoulders and tried to take his shirt off. He sensed my struggle and threw it off in one easy go. I had seen his upper body before, and it was impressive. My mouth watered at the sight of his bare, chiseled body. Everything about him was attractive to me. Gabriel smacked at my drooling face and swooped back in for an earth-shattering kiss. A growl erupted in the back of his throat. His hands roamed around my body into my trousers. I wiggled, letting him pull them off. Now it was only in my underwear, my body exposed to him. He took a moment to examine every part of me, his eyes lingering everywhere. "You're an angel, Liberty," he complimented, sincerely. "And you're my world," I replied, smiling happily. That day, we embraced each other's bodies in a passionate manner, becoming one. Our bond strengthened and everything was complete. When I woke up, the sun streamed through the windows. A groan passed through my lips as I used my free hand to shield the rays. Beside me, Gabriel shifted his thick arm that was wrapped around my stomach, tightening. Our bodies were tangled together. Last night was perfect. We had gone on and on the rest of the day and into the night. Gabriel had run a bath in his inn, sweetened together. We sat and talked. It was the most intimate thing I had ever done. I told Gabriel everything, putting all of my cards on the table. He had it all up and copied me. I turned to watch Gabriel sleep. There were no frown lines on his forehead. The scar on his face became more noticeable, but I found it endearing. He muttered my name under his breath, possibly dreaming about me. I brushed away a loose strand of hair, my fingers igniting. "I love you. Thank you for coming into my world and saving me. I'll always love you, and I'll always stay by you," I whispered, my heart flowing with pure love. He hummed, "Hatches." I knew deep down he already knew my feelings. I knew this because he felt the same way. Rolling out of bed, I stretched my tense limbs and threw on a yellow flowery dress. I descended the stairs with a spring in my step and met Sabrina, Glade, and Jacob in the dining room. Jacquard really settled in the pack. He promised to stay and help me recover my magic, which I knew was impossible. I knew the real reason he was still here was because of Eden. He was waiting for her. We hadn't heard back from Eden in a while. She had been told about Gomez's death because she wrote to Sabrina, but that was the last letter. I assumed she was doing well. I hoped she was, at least. I had a feeling Jacob would be staying with us for a while. "Good morning." Sliding into my usual seat. "How did everyone sleep?" "Well, but I imagine not as well as you. You're practically glowing," Jacob mentioned, eyeing my form. I smiled boldly. "Well, it's a beautiful day. Why would I not be happy?" They all exchanged looks, knowing the real reason I was in this mood. None of us saw Gabriel until mid-morning. He looked just as cheerful as me. We both worked in his office, making an excellent team. Gabriel had assigned me to inner-pack jobs whilst he focused on outer-pack ones. We decided that we'd come together if we had new alliances. I peered up at him from my desk opposite his. He looked so out of place, yet in place still. This was his world. Her world. That one simple thought made me thrilled. I didn't need anything else. I had him in the pack. That was enough. And that's a wrap. It's been a long time in the making, but now Liberty is over. And boy, what a ride it has been. As I said at the top of this chapter, I will be posting an extra chapter that will have some more information about the series and other books. You can start reading my new book, The King's Lost Queen, ahead on Patreon. If you don't want to, you will also be able to read it on Enkittened Wattpad. Here's an excerpt from it. "Home," he snorted. "You didn't have a home, Aurora. You were bouncing between places." I glared at him. "What? And you think this place is my home?" I countered, darkly. A frustrated sigh passed through his lips. Yes. You are home and you are safe. I had had enough. Rising to my feet, I chucked my napkin on the table and began walking away. Long fingers wrapped around my wrist, stopping me from moving any further. Fighting the urge to gasp, I followed the length of the arm to its owner. King Alan gazed down at me, his dark orbs, with flickers of gold that I had failed to spot earlier, were narrowed. I noticed that his breathing had gotten heavier and the veins in his forehead were bulging. Don't you feel it? Easing his grip on my wrist, my tugging came to a halt as I focused on what he was referring to. The tingles. No, tingles did not describe it well. The electricity. It was as if his touch had set off fireworks on my skin. My whole body came to life, ignited by such a simple touch. There was no denying what I was feeling. This wasn't some near electric shock. What I was feeling was something magical, overwhelming, and new. Even he appeared taken aback. This was the first time we had made skin-to-skin contact. And by God, the fire that had been ignited in my body left me breathless. It was harder to deny his words now. Not when there was clearly something otherworldly going on between us. This was not normal. He was staring at my face, gauging my reaction. I couldn't hide the shock painted on my face, nor could I mask the desire and curiosity in my eyes. He could see it all and knew that I was starting to believe it. This is real, he declared. Surely. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.